Absolutely.
And real true sports. Always.
True school sports.
True school sports.
There you go.
Always.
Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, the cash cow of the YTBC, and I came here to talk some boxing. Now, before I get into the core of this video, let me just say this. I'm absolutely blown away and happy to, about just the support we've been getting here on True School Sports. My Riddick BOWE, HOLYFIELD interviews have become wildly popular. You guys are responding really greatly to that. So if you watch that, thank you. If you watch my Stacey McKinley interviews this month, thank you. If you watch any of my interviews, thank you. If you watch my lives and that's how you got here, thank you. If you watch videos like this, thank you. It was just my most successful month in damn near well over 2 years, since May of 2017. And we're talking about almost 800,000 views, almost 2,000 new subscribers. So people are liking what I'm putting out there on True School Sports, and hopefully we're representing the fight game in a good manner, in a good light. But that's what it is there. And before we get into the core of this video, I wanted to also say this. As we talk about Demetrius "Boo Andrade in wake of his amazing performance against Suleski, where he shut him out and didn't even lose a round, I wanted to say I'm sorry, and I'll tell you what I'm sorry for. I'm sorry for ever in my life saying that Terrence Crawford is a more skilled fighter than Demetrius "Boo Andrade. I'm sorry. I was kind of drinking the Terrence Crawford Kool-Aid for a bit, but I mean, this guy right here is the most skilled American fighter on the planet, the most skilled American boxer we have in the world, and he'll prove it to the world if he gets those opportunities. If he gets those opportunities to really show his talent as he's demanding and as he's calling out, Canelo and Triple G. If he gets those shots, he'll prove it. Because this guy is top drawer, he's world class, and he has an extremely high level of quality when he's in that ring. Now, to kind of get into his fight with Suleski this weekend, it was an interesting fight for him because Andrade has been someone that's had horrible promotion in his career. He's had a whole slew of management issues, so that's a big contributing factor as to why he's not a bigger fighter, as to why he hasn't fought the big names. But this was I think for his career, a landmark moment as he actually fought in his hometown for the first time over there in Providence, Rhode Island at the Dunkin' Donuts Center. And he fought a guy in Suleski who was a top 10 caliber opponent, top 10 lower top 10 quality opponent. Not a walk in the park. We've seen Suleski in the past fight the likes of Daniel Jacobs and give him a great fight. Give him all he could handle, and some people thought he even beat Daniel Jacobs. So this is a fight for Andrade where he could not look past him, and he had to really go in there and put on an amazing display of boxing, and that's what he did. Came out early in the first couple of rounds, hit him. He was throwing these wide ass punches. I think he throws wide punches sometimes, but his punches were a bit wide because I feel like with Andrade, he knows what he can get away with when he fights fighters. So in this particular case, he knew that this guy didn't have the quickness to counter him and was slow-footed, so he could throw his punches and wing them wide, and he has a very great understanding for positioning, and that's why you'll very rarely ever see him get caught with something, especially if he's boxing often and he's match fit and he's match sharp. Very hard guy to beat. Very guy to hit cleanly. I mean, I think for the whole 12 rounds of that fight, he maybe the whole fight got hit with like 5 punches cleanly. maybe. And now I'm not even sure I could 5-5. The guy's just a fantastic fighter. He scored a knockdown early on. Showed a little bit of everything. He gave you an excellent display of boxing. You saw him fight aggressively and to knock him down coming forward. You saw him fight in the pocket. You saw the defense. You saw counter punching. You saw the whole package from Andrade, and that's just what he is in boxing. When he steps in that ring, he is the whole package, and he is the most skilled. I'm gonna say it again, and I'm gonna make it a point from this video forward to say this about this guy, because this is what he is, and the fact that I haven't said this about him before is a tragedy within itself, and it just goes to show you how underrated he is. The guy is the most skilled American fighter out there. There's not a fighter from this country with the understanding of positioning, range, having an A-level jab, counter punching, being able to just do it all in the ring. Box tall, box in the pocket, close the gap, close the distance. He does it all in the ring, and I think he's at that point in his career where there's literally nothing else left for him to do but fight the top guys. He's tried to fight these top guys. They, particularly with Canelo and Triple G, every time his name is brought up, they act like they never heard of him. They act like they don't know how to speak English, you know, and when Canelo can speak perfect English, you know. So he needs to fight BOWE Andrade and give him the opportunity. And I can understand in the past, like I can understand in the past when he was inactive and he wasn't fighting and he wasn't on the zone and he wasn't world champion, why these guys are ducking, because essentially he is very high risk and extremely low reward because he's not a name like that. But now, when we talk about BOWE Andrade, we're talking about a guy who is undefeated. We're talking about a guy who's 28-0. We're talking about a man who holds the WBO middleweight title, the last key to the middleweight puzzle. And I'm going to say it like this, man. I know Canelo and Triple G are the big names. I know there's going to be people in this comment section saying, oh, well, Andrade hasn't fought anybody. He needs to fight this guy. He needs to fight that guy. And these guys, you know, fought such and such, and they don't want to fight him. Look, styles make fights in boxing. I know it's very cliche, and people kind of say that to sound like they know more than what they're talking about, but it's true. Styles in boxing make fights. And when we talk about BOWE Andrade, we're talking about a guy who is a long, rangy, dangerous, exceptional southpaw boxer, okay, with excellent understanding of positioning, with excellent understanding of range, with above average punching power in both hands. He's a fantastic fighter, and he is a nightmare matchup. Particularly, I mean, for Canelo, that's more of a 50-50 fight if he fights BOWE Andrade, but particularly for Triple G, he is a nightmare matchup of the highest order for the slow-footed Triple G. Triple G, who's always been slow-footed, Triple G, who, let's have it right, man, he made a career out of knocking out 154-pounders. You know, a good fighter, you know, a fantastic middleweight, one of the best middleweights you've ever seen. But he's a middleweight who's slowing down. He was a middleweight who has slow feet. He is a middleweight that we've seen Kell Brook move around, win rounds against him. We've seen Steve Rolls, in his last fight, move around, counterpunch him, use that range against him. So when we talk about Andrade, he's in a whole other solar system of talent when it comes to those fighters, and belief and confidence when it comes to those fighters. And I have zero doubts in my mind, and I'm taking all bets. So look, if any of y'all GGG fan boys out there, if y'all want to bet any money of Triple G and Andrade if they ever fight, you know, you can cash at me. My cash app's my about. We can bet whatever you want. And I'm not even a betting man like that, but I'll bet the house on Andrade beating Triple G. That's how confident I am. And if Triple G doesn't fight him, I'll tell you right now, if Triple G retires from boxing, if he hangs with those boxing gloves, without ever fighting Demetrius BOWE Andrade, I will have lost all respect for him, all, because this is a guy that made a career, and I'm calling a spade a spade. Triple G is a great middleweight. I think I take nothing away from him. He's one of the greatest middleweights of all time. He's made a ton of great title defenses. I think he was robbed in both Canelo fights. I thought he won both Canelo fights. I thought he beat Jacobs pretty easily. I think he has underrated things about his skill set, but let's call a spade, man. You're not a champion anymore. You need to fight Canelo. I feel like you should do it the honest way, and you should go get that WBO middleweight title. And that way, if you beat BOWE Andrade, that third fight with Canelo becomes that much bigger. But if he retires from boxing and never fights BOWE Andrade, I will have zero respect left for Triple G. Zero. Because you're fucking fighting Steve Rolls and Vance Martirosyan. You could have fought him last year. He was calling for you last year to replace, who was it? I forgot. When he fought Vance Martirosyan, he wanted to fight you last year. And you didn't mention his name. Every time Andrade's name is mentioned, Golovkin acts as if he doesn't know how to speak English anymore. And I'm just saying, like, you gotta fight this dude. You gotta fight this man. This man is world class. He's top drawer. He is one of the best and most skilled fighters. And I will argue with anybody you want. So any of you Crawford fanboys out there, there's no American fighter right now in all of boxing who's more skilled than Demetrius BOWE Andrade. And you can't say names like Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, or any of those young guys because they ain't fought nobody yet. They fought nobodies. They've been fighting the McDonald's drive-through workers and the high school cafeteria workers and the janitors. They haven't fought nobody yet. So you can't say, you know, those guys are more skilled than Andrade. Andrade has been there. He's been proven at world level. He's been world champion. You know, I would say even in his last 5 fights, he's got an underrated resume. I mean, I know they're not the biggest names, but if anybody who's up in the boxing knows the last 5 fighters he's fought are good fighters. You know, we talk about guys like Suleski, top 10 rated middleweight, you know, gave Jacobs problems. We talk about Arthur Akavov, you know, a guy who gave Billy Joe Saunders all he could handle, damn near beat Billy Joe Saunders. You know, we talk about you know, Willie Nelson, the same Willie Nelson that stopped Tony Harrison and gave him his first loss. Andrade outclassed him and stopped him in like 8-9 rounds. You know, we talk about Jack Kulke, a guy who's been a tough out for anybody that's ever been in the ring with. I believe he, I don't know if I know he fought Zaleski, but I think he beat him. But you know, tough fighter. Let's see, who else did he fight? And then Alontes Fox, who I don't remember much about as far as resume, but taller guy than Andrade, so it was a different look for him. So he's fought some really good fighters. He's not, Andrade may not have the biggest names in the division on his resume, but when we look at his last 4 or 5 fights, he's fighting guys who come to win. He's fighting guys who aren't gonna lay down. He's fighting guys who are good fighters. He's not going to get Steve Rolls. No disrespect to Steve Rolls, but he's not going to get the Steve Rolls of the world, a guy who was inexperienced, never fought in a 12-rounder, and then they throw him in a 12-rounder for the Triple G fight. He's not going to get that kind of fighter. He's not going to get Rocky Fielding, a guy who never, ever, ever, ever had a fight at the world level, let alone proven himself at the world level. So, he's been tested. He's been proven, okay, and he's outclassed anybody and everybody that has been willing and had the balls to step foot in the ring with him. Outclassed him. And I'm gonna say this. And I'm gonna say this right here. I'm gonna say it for everybody to hear. If Triple G, Tom Loeffler, K2 Promotions, if they ever get the courage to sign their contracts and fight this man, he will outclass Triple G. He will beat Triple G to a pulp, and he will unless Triple G knocks him out, he's not losing more than 3 rounds to him. That's my prediction for that fight. But and not just Triple G, Canelo can no longer avoid Andrade either. I mean, Andrade is an exceptional fighter, and he holds a middleweight title. So I understand that the WBC is in cahoots with Canelo. They're in bed with Canelo, and they're over there giving him a massage and a deep tissue massage, and they're rubbing oil over his body. I get it. They want to be in cahoots with Canelo. That's their prerogative. But when it comes to BOWE Andrade, or Andrade, I should say, I don't know. I always get his name wrong. Andrade. When it comes to BOWE Andrade, and Canelo being the clear-cut #1 middleweight, because in my opinion, the way I see it, I don't see Canelo as a clear-cut middleweight, #1 middleweight, and I don't see Triple G as the #1 middleweight. The #1 middleweight would be whoever fights the undisputed, and Canelo has 2 or 3 belts. Now, I mean, I know he doesn't have the WBC belt because he's the franchise champion. Now Charlo's champion, but Andrade should be afforded the opportunity to fight those guys because they've been ducking him long enough. And it's highly unfortunate. It's highly unfortunate that we live in a world where the best don't fight the best sometimes. It's highly unfortunate that a guy like BOWE Andrade, when people say this guy's boring or that he sucks and that he's not good, honestly, it's a real shame because this is a fighter that if you cannot see that BOWE Andrade is an A-level talent and that he's top drawer and that he's quality of the highest order, then I don't know why you're watching boxing. I would question if you don't understand boxing because this guy, he's an amazing fighter. He's a very well-balanced fighter. He's a very, very well-rounded fighter, and if you've done any homework on his last 4 or 5 fights, if you've done any homework on his resume, you will know that he's been there with some really good fighters. He just hasn't fought. He hasn't been afforded the chance to fight those A-level guys because they've been ducking him for all these years. So that's why, if we're being honest, right, Andrade was ducked by everybody in the mother at 154, right? So Billy Joe Saunders ducked him at 154. He moves up to 160, agrees to fight him, and then, Sanders Saunders fails the drug test. Then he moves up to 168. So Andrade calls him at 154, he moves up to 160. He chases him at 160, fails the drug test, moves up to 168. Same thing with Canelo. Now, when Canelo was at 154, Andrade was calling him out then. He wanted to fight him then. Oh, well, no. Canelo's going up to 160. Now he's at 160, and he's 160, and he's world champion, and you were both with the zone, and he still can't get that fight. Now the WBC makes him Canelo the franchise champion to avoid fighting Andrade and Charlo. I mean, because let's have it right, man. Let's have it right. And you know what? I want to talk about Charlo as well. I was gonna make that a separate video, but since we're talking about Andrade, let's also talk about Jermall Charlo. Because there's been a lot of talk this weekend, and even in the weeks leading up to Charlo's fight. Is Canelo ducking Charlo? Because right now, I think, I'm not even the biggest look. I know a lot of people don't agree with it, but I mean, how could you look at the whole situation with the WBC right now and not at least consider the possibility that Canelo could be avoiding Jermall Charlo? I mean, for Christ's sakes, the guy has been WBC middleweight mandatory for well over a year. He's in WBC middleweight mandatory. Good fighter. Anybody who says Jermall Charlo is a shitty fighter, I don't got no time for you because you're clearly showing that you know nothing about boxing. This is a guy who who just knocked out Julian Williams, who everybody's all hyped up on now. I like Julian Williams myself. I think he's a pound-for-pound caliber fighter, but he stopped that guy. And the way he stopped him was amazing. I mean, he literally caught his punch in the air. He caught his punch in the air with his. He's an orthodox fighter, so he caught a Julian Williams jab in midair with his right hand, and with the same punch in the same motion, caught it and countered him with an uppercut and knocked him down. Fighters who are trash cannot do that. Okay. I know his last couple of performances against Korobov and even Brandon Adams may have been leaving things to be desired. I mean, a lot of people thought he lost to Korobov. I don't think so. I think he just edged it. I think he showed enough poise and won the rounds and was able to hurt Korobov and just show that expedited quality to win those rounds. I think he beat Matt Korobov, but close fight, 7-5, one of those type of fights. Good fight there. He got his rounds in. Now he fought a guy in Brandon Adams who came in with a lot of confidence. And let's not shit all over Brandon Adams. Or taking anything away from Brandon Adams. He fought a guy in Brandon Adams who was very confident. He had just won the Contender Series. Not the biggest middleweight in the world, but he was a guy that wasn't giving Charlo a lot to, he wasn't giving him a lot to work with. He was moving. He was elusive, very hard to hit. Wasn't opening up a lot, overcommitting to punches because he wasn't trying to trade with Charlo. And when you get a guy like that in front of you, it's hard to show that expedited quality and knock them out. But Charlo still won the fight. He won it, clearly. And people are using that to say he's trash. But I mean, let's have it right, man. He's been WBC mandatory for well over a year, and Canelo has shown zero interest in fighting him. So I understand people don't like the Charlos. Personally, I'm not a big fan of Jermall. Jermall is whatever. I think he's an overrated fighter. Jermall, to me, I think he's got the makings of a great fighter. I think he's got a chance to be a great fighter. And I think he should be just like BOWE Andrade. But I don't feel like strongly about him getting the fight over Andrade. But it's the same thing. I feel strong. I feel like he should be afforded the opportunity to put his skills to the test if he's willing to put his skills to the test against Canelo or Triple G, as he's been calling them out for well over a year. I understand with unlike Andrade, he's not aligned with the zone. The PBCs with Al Heyman, so that could be a roadblock. But these guys should be considering if Canelo and Triple G truly want to prove that they're head and shoulders above everybody in the division, they should be fighting the guys who are the other champions in the division. And the fact that Canelo and the WBC had to get in bed with each other and create the WBC franchise champion BS to avoid fighting Jermall Charlo and to have another reason to not fight Andrade, it's very, very horrible. And it's ridiculous, And I'm not gonna knock Canelo because I made a video recently, stating that. I don't know if it's going to be out already or when it's coming out when I release this video, but I made a video with my dad and we talked about Canelo potentially moving up to light heavyweight to fight Sergey Kovalev, and I have no problems with that if he does that. I have no qualms about that if he does that. I'm not going to say, that's why I'm not going to say Canelo's ducking, because if you're fighting Sergey Kovalev, you're fighting a really good fighter. You're fighting a future Hall of Famer in Kovalev, and you're fighting one of the best light heavyweights, top 25, top 30 best light heavyweights that ever did it in boxing. So I can't say you're ducking, but he's not going out of his way to truly prove that he is the best middleweight. He's not going, and I can understand where in other divisions where the belts are broken up and you have this guy with this promoter and then you have this guy with that promoter. All the middleweight champions up until just recently, all the middleweight champions were on the zone. Okay, Canelo and Andrade were on the zone. So there was no excuse not to fight for the undisputed middleweight title. But no, you got with WBC. Mauricio Sulaiman started giving you a deep tissue massage, and you created the WBC franchise champion so that you could have another way and another loophole to navigate your career as you see fit and duck certain fights or and avoid certain fights. And so the WBC did it so they can get another sanctioning fee. So I think, Canelo, same goes for him. If he goes his whole career and he doesn't fight BOWE Andrade, I have no respect for him either. Good fighter. I can look at him and say he's a great fighter. But I mean, this guy right here is one of the best fighters out there. One of the best fighters out there. And if you cannot see that BOWE Andrade is not one of the best fighters out there, I think I might need to take you and get you guys a couple of pairs of these, because if you can't see that he's one of the best fighters out there, then you shouldn't be watching boxing. Straight up. If you can't see that he's not one of the best fighters out there, then you shouldn't be watching boxing, because this guy does everything exceptionally well in the ring. I understand with this last performance he was kind of getting a little bit wild, but he did that because he knew he could get away with it. He's not gonna do that and get away with it and get away with that against other fighters. And he's not going to try to do that and get away with it against other top-level fighters. But he knew Selesky, he was a level above Selesky. He knew he could outclass him, and he did outclass him. So he is the most skilled American fighter out there. I think he should be afforded the chances to fight Triple G and Canelo. And I would say even say the same for Charlo. You know, you can love Charlo or hate Charlo. I know he's not everybody's cup of tea, but you can't take away for anything from the fact that this guy is a good fighter, a worthy opponent, and someone that does deserve the big fights, that does deserve to be in there with GGG, that does deserve to be in there with Canelo. And listen, you can sit there and you could say, oh, well, he's never fought this guy, and he's never fought that guy, and he's not this, and he's not that, but he's got the kind of skill, Jermall Charlo, where, you know, he can counter you with the right punch, he hits you with the right hand. You know, he's got fight-changing power. Fight-changing power, he's got underrated boxing ability. And I'm telling you right now, the Corval fight was the best thing that ever happened in his career, and the Brandon Adams fight will be another good thing to happen in his career, because he's seen guys with different styles, guys with different pedigrees in boxing, and he's getting rounds, and he's learning. And this is always good for a fighter. And I think this gets underrated sometimes. He's learning that you can't just hit a fighter. Every fighter you hit isn't gonna fall. You know, you're eventually gonna run into a fighter who can take your shots, who can avoid your shots, and, you know, make you fight hard competitive rounds, and that's what's happened to Charlo. He's had a major run into his career where he was knocking out Julian Williams, and he was knocking out Austin Trout, and he was stopping you know, what's his name, what's that guy's name who beat Alim? I can't remember his name right now. That one young 60-pounder that he beat in like 2 rounds. So I can't remember his name right now. You know, he was stopping these guys left, right, and center. But now he's ran into 2 guys in Korobov and Brandon Adams who, you know, he was hitting them with the kitchen sink. He was hitting them with big punches, and they weren't going. They weren't falling. So, you know, this has been good for him, because now it can mentally mature him as a fighter. You know, and what this is going to do for Jermall Charlo is, you know, physically he's going to keep improving. Mentally he'll keep improving, and he'll start understanding the sweet science of boxing more. And when that mental ability meets with that physical ability at its highest form, that's what we call a fighter being in his prime in boxing, his prime years. And I feel like Jermall Charlo is entering those prime years. He's getting better. He's getting not just ring experience, but he's getting quality ring experience, the right ring experience. And it's this kind of experience that I think would serve him well in a Canelo fight, that would serve him well in a Triple G fight. And, you know, all you guys out there saying he's trash, he's no good, you know, you don't know what you're watching. Respectfully, you don't know what you're watching, because Jermall Charlo is one of the best middleweights out there, and he does deserve those big fights, as does Andrade. But I've been talking for 22 minutes. Just want to get my thoughts out there on this whole, you know, this whole situation with these American middleweights and the cash cows in the middleweight division in Canelo and Triple G, because, you know, these 2 American middleweights, you know, Charlo and Andrade, you know, they're both very talented fighters. They're both world championship fighters, and these are both guys who have been calling out Triple G and Canelo for well over a year and some change. And I think they both deserve and have cases to have gotten fights with them, and should be getting fights with them right now. But because the politics of boxing, because money ultimately rules over the sport, it's going to be hard for those guys to get those fights, to get those fights over the line. And, you know, I hope those guys get a chance to prove their skills on the big stage, because, you know, boxing fans are confusing sometimes. Y'all want it both ways. Y'all want the fighters to fight the best, but then when they go through the process of putting themselves in position to fight the best and demand those fights, then you guys say, oh, well, this guy hasn't fought this guy. This guy will get sparked, and, you know, he's that's a joke. So, boxing fans, you cannot have it both ways. You cannot be over here and say, oh, well, I want to see the best fight the best, and then when the fighter says, okay, I'm gonna put myself in a position to fight the best, you know, become mandatory, beat quality, top 10 opposition, you know, things like that. You can't then, when they get to the point where they actually deserve the fight, you can't say, once they call the guys out, oh, well, he's never fought this guy, and he's never fought that guy, you know? So, you know, get it together, boxing fans. Do you want to see the best fight the best, or do you want to see, you know, these guys be businessmen and navigate the career as they see fit? Let me know in the comments down below, because I'm quite confused. You know, I want to see Andrade fight Triple G and Canelo. I want to see Jermall Charlo fight Triple G and Canelo. I want to see if Triple G and Canelo are still as good as everybody says, because look, people can say it's easy for people to say, oh, well, these guys are the 2 best middleweights, when in actuality, you know, Triple G has not beaten a top middleweight since he fought Daniel Jacobs in March 2017. So he hasn't proven that he hasn't proven to be a top middleweight in a long time. Canelo, in many people's estimations, got 2 gifts against Triple G, And before, up until just recently with Jacobs, he had never beaten a top middleweight. So did he really ever go through the process of proving himself as a top middleweight? These are things you gotta look at. As to where with Andrade, he's beaten Zaleski, who's a top 10 middleweight. He's beaten Arthur Akavov, who gave Billy Joe Saunders all he can handle, and Billy Joe Saunders was world champion at middleweight. So good opponent there. Fought Willie Nelson at 154. Fought Walter Kakadawa, who I understand isn't a name and isn't ranked, but Kakadawa, you saw what Andrade was hitting him with. He's a tough fighter, so, you gotta look at these things. As for Jermall Charlo at 160, he fought, most recent fight fought Brendan Adams, who very elusive fighter. I think Brendan Adams would make a lot of fighters look bad, Triple G included, so you had a hard time with Brendan Adams with the full 12 with him. Okay, no problem. Before that, he fought Matthew Korobov. I mean, and do I even gotta get to Korobov? Korobov was a guy that was ducked and avoided for years at middleweight by champions, and Charlo had the unpleasant task of fighting Korobov on short notice, and so he beat him. So, if you want to be honest, if you want to be objective, and if you want to be frank, Charlo and Andrade have actually been proving themselves against better middleweight opposition as of late than Triple G and Canelo. These are facts. Triple G and Canelo have gotten the passes and have been afforded the excuses, not excuses, but they've been afforded the preferential treatment by sanctioning bodies and boxing fans at large of, them just saying they're the best middleweights, but they haven't been actually proving it against other top middleweights over the last year and a half or so. Charlo and Andrade have actually been the guys who have been fighting, good, credible opposition at middleweight outside of, themselves, because Canelo and Triple G in the last year or so have only fought themselves. They, and if you look at the guys that have been fighting aside from themselves, when we talk Canelo, he fought Jacobs. Okay, great fight there, no problems there. Before that, he fought Rocky Fielding and cherry-picked his way to a title up there. So, Canelo has a good middleweight resume. Beating Daniel Jacobs in decisive fashion like he did. That's no small accomplishment. But up until that point, what had he really done at middleweight aside from the two Triple G fights in which people thought he got gifts in? A lot of people thought he got gifts in. Triple G has not had a quality middleweight win since freaking Jacobs. So, gotta look at these things. And this is me being objective. I know I'm gonna get a lot of people here in the comments saying that Brendan, you don't know what you're talking about. BT, you know nothing about boxing. Charlo's a bum. Andrade is boring. Yada yada yada. It is what it is. But if you're saying that, it just shows me that you don't know boxing. You don't appreciate boxing, and you don't know what you're talking about, because Andrade. If you want to look at Andrade and look at Andrade's amateur record, his amateur pedigree, he has proven from the amateurs up until now that he is A-level top drawer of the highest order in boxing. He just hasn't had those chances. And when we talk about Jermall Charlo, he didn't have those amateur exploits Andrade has. But I mean, people are going on and on about Julian Williams, and he demolished Julian Williams, demolished Austin Trout, and beating Matthew Korobov as well. So he has a good resume. You can't take these things away from these guys. These guys are good fighters. So I'm going to leave it at that. I've been rambling and ranting and raving for like 28 minutes now. But I really think that Jermall Charlo and Andrade should be getting those big fights at middleweight. And Canelo and Triple G, if they never fight these guys and they avoid them through their careers, I'm going to have a lot of respect for both of them, because these guys have went through the process, have been earning it. They've been beating better and more credible middleweight opposition. And I emphasize the word middleweight opposition. Guys who are proven and tried and true at 160. They have beaten more middleweight opposition than Triple G, more quality middleweight opposition than Triple G and Canelo have in the last year or so, or 18 months. So that's what it is. I'm going to leave it at that. You guys in your comments down below. Take the time to subscribe, like I say in every single one of these videos. You can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just a kid from Daniel. So until next time, take care, guys.
My name is Rachel McDonough, and this is my friend. Hi, I'm Savannah. And we're here at the beautiful Madison Square Garden for the big fight, and you are watching True School Sports.